Good evening, everyone. Hi. My name is Alyssa Karpenka, and I am the event coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. Tonight's event is coming to you from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. Special hello to anyone joining us through the live stream from home. And for those of you who are here in person, thank you for joining us as well. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of the newly revised and expanded Phases by Belinda Betker. Thank you to Belinda for being here tonight and to ShadowPaw Press for working with us to create the event. Belinda, also known as Dyke Van Dick, is a prairie-born writer and drag king whose poetry and award-winning haiku are published online and in various anthologies, literary journals, and chapbooks. She is a founding member of two long-running Saskatoon writing groups, Sisters Inc. and the Obsessors. She was also a founding and longtime board member of the Saskatoon Writers Collective. Belinda lives in Saskatoon with her wife and their rescue dog. We will now hear from Belinda, followed by a brief Q&A and book signing. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thanks very much, Alyssa, and thank you all for coming out tonight on what's probably going to be the closest night of the year so far. Yeah, so I'm Belinda Betker. I'd like to start off with the thank yous and taking my mask off. I'm being mimed to take it off, so thank you. So yeah, my gratitude to McNally's for fitting my launch into their very busy and diverse schedule. They've got a fabulous lineup of other guests coming up, so check their website for their schedule of hybrid and in-person events and attend as many as possible, because McNally's has been hugely supportive of the writing community since they started here, and it means a lot to me and my writing friends, and people who love books, and people who are reading everything. So just come. Thanks to Alyssa here at McNally's for organizing and setting up and running everything here tonight. Thanks to all of you that are here in person, as I said, almost the coldest night of the year, and especially after the snowing and blowing. What is it, 4 or 5 days that we've had? Yeah, so it's a big deal to come out on evenings this time of year. So thank you. Thanks to all of you watching out there in virtual land. I know there's a lot of people that said they'd be watching from around the country. So thank you for being here, and thank you to those of you who watch this later on YouTube. And so I've got a note here. Wave to everyone. So I'm waving everyone. Waving to all of you out in BC and Alberta and Saskatchewan and wherever else you are. Thank you. And finally, thanks to my new publisher, Ed Willett of ShadowPaw Press. He gave my book a new home, and that means a lot to me. And thanks also to ShadowPaw's publicist, that's Mickey Nicholson, Creative Edge Publicity. He's lined up some really interesting interviews for me to do and podcasts and things that I would never have found on my own. So thanks to Ed and Mickey. I really appreciate being here to celebrate the second edition of Phases. It's almost exactly 3 years ago today that I launched the first edition here at McNally's. So again, kudos to McNally's for being here. The second edition is not the same as the first. It is expanded. It has an additional 31 new poems, and I'll explain why in a minute. And some of the first edition poems are moderately revised, but many of the first edition poems are what they were. Just as Phases is my poetic memoir, and has its own storyline, my book has its own story too. So as I said, the first edition came out in October of 2019 with Cotto Books, and was subsequently nominated for 2 2020 Saskatchewan Book Awards. So that was very exciting. But a few months later, there were some health crises in my family and with friends. My publisher went out of business. COVID-19 was declared, and my book tour plans were, of course, abandoned. So I kind of felt stopped in my tracks about what to do with this book that suddenly didn't have a home. But meanwhile, no matter what other writing projects I was working on, and there were quite a few, I found myself still writing poems about childhood and coming of age and gender dynamics and sexual politics. And I started to imagine, what my book would have looked like if those other new poems had been in it. And fortunately, that became a reality this year when my new publisher, Ed Willett of ShadowPaw Press, he very enthusiastically supported my vision of adding new poems. And basically he said, do what you want, it's your book. So yeah, the second edition is here with those 31 new poems, and it came out in September of this year. So I'm going to start by moving this mask. I'm going to start with the first. This is a new poem for the second edition, so it's now the first poem in the book. And the poems are going to move chronologically throughout my life as I read. This is called Girls and Boys When I'm 5. Mom and I are girls, and Dad and my brothers are boys. Girls have BGs, and boys have PPs. Girls wear panties and dresses, and boys wear underpants and jeans. Moms are housewives, and dads have jobs. Girls help moms make beds, wash dishes and clothes, sweep floors and vacuum, and make pickles in jars. And boys play catch with dads. Girls play with dolls and Barbies and look after brothers who play Lego, toy cars, guns, and cowboys and Indians. Girls grow up and get married and have kids, and boys grow up and get jobs and get married and buy cars and trailers and boats. Girls get really old and gray and wrinkled and become grandmas, and boys become whiskered grandpas, and then they all die. That's how I saw it when I was 5. This poem is called Dress Up. Mom's favorite skirt, brown sugared wool, rickrack and embroidery, loop a traceable path, round and round the flaring hem. Her favorite blouse, satiny white, cute tomato printed between winking red tomato faces. Gleaming pearl buttons fasten the front and 3/4 length sleeves. I button her top over my chest, flat profile in the sliding closet door mirrors. Gyrate my hips to swish the skirt's hula hoop fullness. Dad's side of the closet. His shirt sleeves dangle from the ends of my arms, ties reach my knees. His prized snap brim hat covers my face. Years later, my mother remakes her skirt into a hassock cover, but her blouse hangs in the back of my out-of-season closet, while Dad's hat rests on the highest shelf in a dust-free box. I'm going to jump ahead in age here. This poem is called Grade 6. The coolest girl in class mouths a silent message to me across the rows. I shrug, raise my hands. Mime, what? She puckers her cherry glossed lips into slow, exaggerated, silent pronunciation, but I can't make out what she means. What would it take to understand her unvoiced words, to comprehend my desire to decipher her mouth and lips? This next poem is called Good Girl. Mr. L walks so quietly between the rows during creative writing, I forget he's there until he punches his signet ring down onto the crown of my head as I bend over the folded note just passed to me. It's addressed and signed with symbols we girls design at recess or after school at each other's houses. Unique logos for each of us, so anyone not in the know won't know who the notes are to or from. But Mr. L knew he was the Mr. Snotface in the note. So it was me he kept after school for detention, for his self-described heart-to-heart about how I should follow the rules, write creatively as assigned, not pass notes, and be a good girl, all the while staring at my chest. You're a bad teacher. Gonna jump ahead to quite a few years to my first marriage. I was only 20 when I got married. What did I know? But yeah, so this is a poem about that relationship. I think the language warning starts here. You can hear a few F-bombs throughout some of the poems following from here. This is called Tattoos. Fully rigged sailing ship inked on his lower right forearm. The first tattoo I ever touched on a man's skin. A bit cliche, a sailor and a ship. But a few years after Hurricane Blanche's destruction in Halifax, during CFDR's endless summer of 75, and 1976's East Coast posting, I transferred permanently to Victoria, moved in, and married him at City Hall. Each deployment, he got another tattoo. He returned after 2 months at sea, proud to show off the griffin on his right bicep. Are you sure? I asked, scrutinizing the crimson reared up stallion, small wings, a center horn projected from its forehead. Of course I'm sure, he sneered. Everyone knows what a griffin looks like. But I pondered mythological creatures, checked out Encyclopedia Britannica. It's not a griffin, I said, but maybe a horned Pegasus, or a winged unicorn, or a portmanteau unipeg, or pegacorn even. It's my fucking tattoo, he yelled, punching the wall, and that was that. Until the next trip, when he arrived with a parrot on his chest. By then, I don't question species. The next one was in my honor, he said, my name inked in fancy script on his lower left forearm. My immediate thought, he'll be really sorry about that one someday. I don't know what he ever did about that one. If he covered it up, or who knows? Not me. This one is called Slow Pitch. Jade's the new girl at work, 20 to my 22. She's been car shopping, asks what I like better, Trans Ams or Camaros. Trans Ams, I shrug, not knowing the difference. The following week, she invites me out for a ride in her new Glacier Blue TA, opens the door for me, offers me driving lessons anytime. Later, she picks me up at home to head to the ballpark. I'm the pitcher for our Department of Supply and Services slow pitch team. Public servants lettered large and white across the back of our tight red scoop neck t-shirts. My nickname, Belle, in soft flocked black print above my left breast. Always the innuendos on the evening ball diamonds about what we young women, all in our 20s, should supply, who we should service on the mostly male teams from other government department offices we played against. I liked nothing better than to strike them out. All through the season, Jade drives me the long way home, talking about nothing much, until the evening she slides her hand across my thigh, parks in front of my house. Can I come in, she asks. I know your husband's at sea, and I'd love to pinch it. True story. Bad girl. Suppose you're 5 and mom says, it's bad to let anyone see you naked, but you get sick and mom says, except for me and the doctor, and you keep getting sicker and mom takes you to emergency and says, except for me and the doctor and nurse. Suppose you're 6 and you point down below your belly and mom says, no one's supposed to touch you there. But the older neighborhood boy says, let's play doctor and you be a nurse. Later he says, it's a secret you can't tell. because you're a naughty girl and you're very, very bad. Suppose your grade 1 teacher is a nun and says, bad little girls will burn in hell. And you remember how much it hurt when you burned your hand on the stove. Burning scares you, and you raise your hand for permission to go to the bathroom, but she says no. So you pee through your panties and tights, and she slaps you, calls you bad little girl. Suppose your grade 7's teacher, who you've just heard about, suppose your grade 7 teacher is also the principal, which means man, and he also teaches sex education. He says, any of you can come ask me anything in private anytime. So you gather a few classmates together after school and ask him to explain wet dreams. Afterwards, you laugh hysterically with your friends about his embarrassment. You're such a bad girl. Suppose you're 16, double dating with your boyfriend at the drive-in. His best friend and his girlfriend are all too soon fucking in the back seat. So your boyfriend coaxes your head into his lap, forces himself into your mouth, moves your head up and down, moans, you're doing good, you bad, bad girl. Suppose you're 20 and you agree to get married, mostly because all your friends are, and it seems to be the thing to do. Suppose your husband insists you be a slut in the sheets, but a lady in the streets. Suppose you bristle and seethe about his expectations. Suppose your own desires lead a different direction. Suppose you finally say, I'm my own person. Suppose you say, no one else is in charge of me. Suppose you tell yourself, I'm nobody's bad girl. Suppose you're that kind of woman. Just suppose. I'm going to do another big jump here. I'd always wanted to write poetry, and then life got in the way in that relationship and all kinds of other disasters in my life. And I got out of that marriage and entered another one. And during that marriage, I had a health crisis and had to have a surgery that I didn't really want to have, but it had to happen. So I'm going to read a few poems from this series. The series is called Understanding Hysterectomy. And this one is number 9 in the series. This is called Post-Op Second Day. My abdomen distends, an inflated balloon. Staples rise, an elevated railway track. What's left when something's taken out? A silo cleared of grain, a deserted robin's nest, broken, bits of blue on the earth below. A stacking doll, empty. The nurse listens with a stethoscope to my stomach, says there are no gut sounds yet. She can't give me solid food until my stomach makes noise. Proof it's working again after anesthetic. Of course I'm quiet inside, scraped out and hollow, dark of the moon. And this next poem is number 10 in the hysterectomy series. This is called Back Home. Every bump in the road, every train track we cross, every icy rut, every stop and start on the way home makes me moan. My incision so painful, I wonder, will the staples really hold me together? I'm exhausted, need to rest, but can't even maneuver myself into our waterbed. I move downstairs to the guest bedroom for my convalescence. I like it down there, sitting up in bed, drinking tea, reading and writing poems, sleeping alone. Lesbian friends. Friends help out after surgery, bring casseroles and baking, do laundry, pitch in to hire weekly maid services, help me up the stairs, make chai tea, visit through the afternoons. Why do most of your friends seem to be lesbians? My husband asks. My friends are who they are. They're strong, compassionate, powerful, interesting women. They're broad-minded feminists, and we think alike. Interesting, you say broad-minded, he says. That's not a pun. Many of my friends just happen to also be lesbians. Would you rather my friends were men? Of course not, he says. It's just odd. Your women friends are mostly gay. Mostly, I think to myself, so am I. Constant Craving. This is after Katie Lang. I love that song. I love that disc. Constant Craving. My husband and children surround me as I unwrap birthday gifts, a portable CD player, and Ingenue, Katie Lang's newest recording. Her voice and lyrics illuminate my darkest phases. An inner magnet pulls me to parenthood, to the two children I love fiercely, but not their dad. I'm a full-time stepmom. How can I leave? Leaving him would mean leaving them. Alone at home, I play the song on repeat, sobbing. I know now what my constant craving has always been. To accept what I've never dared admit to myself before, to be who I really am beneath my own skin, a lesbian. So those are the beginning of my coming out poems. Coming out in midlife is a really interesting thing to do. There's some other poems about that in this book. Buy it. This next poem, there's a few more abstract kind of esoteric poems in this book. And this is a really short one, but it's just a favorite one of mine. It's called Boundless. My hands on the wheel, music to drive to, silence to drive away from. I thought there was nothing bigger than the sky, but there is this, all that light I cannot hold. I'm going to move now. The last third of the book is poems about drag. My life as a performing drag king. My life, coming out of midlife, going to the gay bar, just coming out in midlife is like being a teenager all over again. It's just a kind of wild and crazy time. I'm going to read this poem. This is another favorite of mine, and true story. This one is called A Man Passing. So beastly hot in Montreal, I walk into the first barbershop I find on St. Catherine. No, he says, but unsure whether he means women's cuts or cutting women's hair, I mime a clipper trimming close to my scalp. He shrugs, leads me to the cracked black vinyl chair by the window where the sun scorches in, my eyes shut in the heat. J'ai fini, he says as he whips the dark cape away from my brother's face in the mirror. Merci, monsieur, as I pay and leave. Back at my hotel, bonjour, monsieur, say the doorman, concierge, the housekeeper in the hallway. At the drugstore gay bar that night, it's men who ask me to dance, like I'm one of them. This poem is, well, I seem to have a lot of favorites, don't I? This is another favorite, but I call this my manifesto poem. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to a lot of other people that initially was surprising to me, but this is called Why Afraid? For the 4-year-old girl who rejects her dolls and miniature ponies for toy cars, trains, and Lego, and the 7-year-old boy who would rather skate Lutz and axle jumps than play hockey, and the 12-year-old tomboy who cries when her mother insists it's time you wear a bra, and the 13-year-old who has less in common with the guys than his girl friends, and the 14-year-old who's bored with her friends giggling about really cute guys, and the 18-year-old boy who obsesses about wanting breasts and no penis, and the 25-year-old guy lingering over the glossy pages of Men's Health, and the 31-year-old trans woman who doesn't know how to tell her family she wants sex reassignment surgery, and the 38-year-old wife who agonizes about how to leave her husband for a younger woman, and the 45-year-old husband who cruises dark city parks and for the men he hooks up with. And the 56-year-old widow who discovers romantic love with her longtime lady friend. And the 62-year-old pansexual who's in between relationships. And the 74-year-old man keeping a hospital vigil for his friend and secret lover. And the 83-year-old self-identified queer and lifelong activist. And the 91-year-old in a nursing home, afraid to be out of the closet. For all of them and all the others who don't identify with gender and sexual norms, who don't fit the stereotypes, labels, and acronyms, who are still discovering their true selves. For all of them and all of us and all our allies, that's why I'm afraid. This next poem, I'm just going to read the first section. It's a longer poem, and this is called Drag King. You remember watching your first drag show? Drag queens, elegant and elaborate outfits, cleavage, bounce and sachet, high heels, glittering flash dance, then the drag king, sideburns, goatee, confident bulge in his crotch. That's when the seed was planted. Something that expanded your ribs, spread across your shoulders, swelled in your groin. That feeling some days of being different. It's not clothes that make a man, but your carriage, broad shoulders, make you believe you can pull it off. The illusion, passing as a man. Don't think too much, don't overanalyze, but you might when you pass the women's wear to the men's department in Valley Village, Village Green, to try in hardly worn suits. Wonder about the men who shrugged them off. Start questioning, asking around, talking about drag. If your girlfriend threatens, I'll leave if you start doing drag, hide your smile, all the more reason. Don't worry about definitions, identifiers, labels, sex deviant, gender anomaly, dyke, lesbian identified boy, non-operative, female body, transgender outlaw, gender bender, gender fucker, gender queer. Tonight, it's just you and the mirror. I'm just aware of the time, so I'm just going to skip ahead. Again, you can read the rest of that. Buy the book. It's all about self-promotion, right? This poem is also a drag poem, and it's simply called In Drag. What possesses me to cut clippings of my hair, chop them finer with manicure scissors, save them in a clear pill bottle in my medicine cabinet? What possesses me on Saturday night to gaze in the mirror, darken my eyebrows with mascara, glue hair clippings into the shape of sideburns, mustache, goatee? What possesses me to bind my breasts, put on a man's shirt, tie, and suit, top it all off with the 50s snap brim hat my father wore before I was born? What possesses me to strut down the alley, to the gay bar, stroll on stage, to lip sync popular new versions of old jazz standards? What possesses me is them, cheering and whistling, begging for more, gay, trans, straight, shouting out they love me. And last poem I'm going to read tonight, it's also the last poem in the book. This is dedicated to my wife. It's called The Right Woman. Ask her out to a drag show. Be in drag to go pick her up. If she smiles when she opens the door, you're off to a good start. Introduce her to your drag family at the bar. Gauge her reaction to them, their reaction to her. When the floor clears after you finish your last number in the show, invite her to dance. If it's a slow song, hold her close. Don't even talk, just move with the music. When you go to get her a drink and your friends say, she never took her eyes off you the whole show, let that sink in. You're intrigued, and the night's getting late. Let her know you'll take her home when she's ready to leave. Let her know you mean your home. If she keeps smiling and hugs you hard, you know she's the one. Marry the woman who loves you. In and out of drag. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Just fantastic to have friends and family and writing community and board members of the Queer Seniors of Saskatchewan here and over there. And I know you can't see them on both sides, but yeah, it's so wonderful to have my people here. This just means so much to me. Thank you for being here to help me celebrate my new phases. One of the reasons I write and do readings is because it makes me feel connected to others. And it's said that even if you forget exactly what people say, they will always remember how you made them feel. So my sincere hope is that you found some degree of relatability to my poetry tonight, and that you feel some sort of connection to others through my story, which is just I see it as just a sliver of the wider world of people's experiences of their own lives. So again, thank you everyone for being here. And Monica's not here tonight, but I want to thank her for designing my brand new website and looking after my social media, because that is not my forte. And very fortunately, it's hers. So if I've forgotten to say thank you to anybody, you're all included in this last generic. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again to Belinda Betker and ShadowPaw Press. Huge thank you to everyone who attended tonight's launch, either in person or virtually. Belinda will stick around to sign some books. We've got a table just over there. And of course, we have copies of Phases available for purchase. You're welcome to get your copy signed before you purchase it. Just be sure to stop at the cash desk on your way out the door. Thank you all for joining us and have a wonderful evening.
Oh, great. Thank you. Really.